Great. Okay, so let's get started. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us today. I think to kick things off, let's introduce everyone on this panel. So from Slice, we have Jaden and myself, Youngan. We are both co-leads of Slice, a project that looks into the future of food and agriculture. So at the same time, Slice is also part of a wider movement called Audacity, which stands for Alternative Universal Design Facility. It's a partnership between JDC Corporation as well as Mistletoe, a collective impact community started by Taizo Sun. So Audacity is a collective of really diverse and passionate individuals who are really keen on designing and building future cities from scratch that are humanity-centric and using a ground-up and community-based approach. So there are lots of projects in Audacity that looks at different verticals or areas. For example, advanced manufacturing to the masses, off-grid modular, urban living. And for Slice, what we're focusing on is really game-changing ideas that will optimize our food value chain for the better. So our vision is really a zero-miles decentralized food system such that every community is able to grow where they consume and thus be self-sustainable in their own food supply. Right, so we look into many different ideas, ranging from how we can incorporate permaculture practices into the way we produce food, to leveraging on robotics and automation to augment our abilities, as well as even forming closed-loop systems where we can recycle and upcycle food waste directly on site. So if you'd like to find out more, please visit our website and also follow us on Instagram for more regular updates. So I think something that we have been looking into at Slice is really how food consumption will change in the future, 20 to 30 years from now. And we see alternative protein as a key part of the story. As we know, it's still a relatively new space, but definitely a fast growing one, right? So over the years, we have seen the likes of Beyond Meat, Impossible, Omni Meat appearing in news articles, and even now finding their way into mainstream fast food chains and restaurants. So today, we are really happy to have our friends from Big Idea Ventures to join us on this very special panel. And together with them, we will work together to unravel some of the biggest myths and misconceptions surrounding the space of alternative proteins. So we have Dr. Dalal, Dr. Matthew, and Patricia with us today. And without further ado, I will hand it over to them to do a short introduction about themselves as well as BIV. So over to you guys.
Thank you, Yang, and thank you, Jaden. It's really great to be part of this panel, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to reach the wider community. So for everyone, my name is Dr. Dalal Fawaz. I'm the program director at Big Idea Ventures. So in terms of my background at the company, I help to kind of direct and lead the accelerator program that we run, which is a 5-month program to help companies accelerate and scale. And we focus on alternative protein companies. So just a quick briefing on my background. So I started off as a scientist. I worked in life sciences as well as food science. And I've been working in the sort of the startup ecosystem space for almost 3 years now. I helped establish the first food technology accelerator in Hong Kong, where I was based before Singapore. And I've worked with companies ranging from alternative proteins, cellular agriculture, as well as smart kitchen equipment and SaaS-related platforms for food safety and food production. So really excited to share our insights on this panel with you all.
Perhaps I can go next in my introductions. So my name is Patricia Fu, everybody. Nice to meet you all. I'm the program manager here at Big Idea Ventures, and I work very closely with Dr. Dalal to really execute a lot of the operations and logistics of the 5-month-long program that we hold here in Singapore. I actually helped to design as well as execute the first program, so it's really exciting now that we have our second one in. Just a bit about my background. Historically, I worked for Antler, in their marketing and PR team, and I worked very closely with a lot of the tech companies that they generated over the years. And this includes, helping to execute demo days and really working closely with them to see what they need. And that's the skill I sort of bring in to Big Idea Ventures as well. Before Antler, I was with TED in Melbourne, Australia, and yeah, moved back to Singapore and very happily joined Big Idea Ventures.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew. Thank you so much for inviting us on this panel to talk about the alternate protein space. So a bit about myself, I'm the food scientist on board on Big Idea Ventures. So what we do is I work together with Dala as well to come up with, to resolve some technical issues that the company face. It could be more the downstream side where they are looking at processing, scaling and manufacturing or distribution. This is something that we seek together with them and to understand a bit of their product and see how we can support them in this area. So prior joining to BIV, I was working in a innovation resource center at FRRC that is in Singapore. It's a joint, center that is established within ESG and SP. So through that, I gained a lot of experience in terms of the processing, the food packaging, shelf life extension. So I based on this experience I have, I use this to really help the startup companies that we have seen in the Idea Ventures. So yeah, we are really excited to be in this panel and to really talk more about the alternate protein. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for the quick introductions. Okay, so before we start proper, I would just like to remind our audience that if you have any burning questions, please drop them in the Q&A box below, and we will try to answer them towards the end of the session, right? So let's go back to the fundamentals of why we're even looking at alternative proteins today. So for those who have joined us in the first Audacity Virtual Open Study last month, we discussed about how COVID-19 has highlighted to us the strains in our food system, especially how we're so over-reliant on centralized food supply chains, and also how we have cultivated a food system that is so efficient, but fails to nourish us adequately. So you think about things like fast food, canned and convenience food, as well as cheap calories associated with this. So at the same time, the crisis has also confirmed the need for us to be able to access clean and healthy food sources, right? So with suspicions over how, even the COVID-19 virus could be linked to wild animal meat, I think this has prompted a lot of people to rethink their diets and look towards alternative proteins such as plant-based substitutes to satisfy some of their meat cravings. We've seen from Hong Kong and mainland China alone, the sales of plant-based meats have doubled in the last 2 months. So I'm actually quite curious, right? Looking beyond China to other parts of the world, how has meat consumption changed before and after COVID-19? And also alongside, other mega trends that we see, such as climate change, rising affluence of the middle class, as well as poultry diseases. So maybe Dr. Dalal, you would like to take a stab at this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of the opportunities, this is a really great chance for companies, to highlight the importance of sustainability, highlight the importance of, really improving our, food supply system, in order to sort of ensure that we don't sort of get into the situation again. So of course, all of these kind of zoonotic viruses are a result, of, being exposed to, animal agriculture. And then, based on, other aspects of the animal agriculture ecosystem, such as antibiotic resistance, this could also be like a warning sign for future pandemics. And I think, everyone that is working in the alternative protein space is coming up with, great solutions to make sure that we don't face any kind of these, any sort of, of these pandemic diseases, that are results of the animal agriculture industry. So I just want to highlight a few kind of trends that we're seeing so far, global trends in terms of meat consumption. So, with, the growing affluence of populations, these are all going to rise. So this is a figure which shows sort of the meat consumption rates from the 60s all the way to 2020. So we can see that, definitely poultry, as well as sort of aquaculture, so farmed fish are on the rise. So this really, is going to put a huge strain, on our ecosystems, on the environment, and they're not very sustainable. So, having the alternative protein space come in line to provide solutions to, sort of reduce the environmental sort of impact, as well as, improve our health and well-being, I think there's a great opportunity. And COVID is just a warning sign of what might happen if we continue with these unsustainable animal industry practices.
Yeah. So Actually, just to be clear for our audience who actually might be quite new to alternative proteins as a substitute to conventional meat sources, what is alternative protein exactly? And how have we seen, the consumption patterns of alternative protein change over the last few years as opposed to conventional meat sources?
Yep, so probably I can talk a bit about alternate protein. So alternate protein, we can classify into different areas. You can be based on the plant-based, or you can be a cell-based protein. So if you can see next to the next slide. Yeah, so this slide typically talks about the meat consumption that over the different countries. But yeah, this slide is alternate protein consumption. Yeah, so you can see from this slide, right, the cultured meat is getting increasing trend in terms of looking at cell-based meat. So I would say a very classic example of looking at cell-based meat will be short meat in Singapore. So they harvest the cell from stream, and then they cultivate it and eventually get a products like the siu mai that we have seen, or the stream dumplings that we have commonly seen in the market. Because all those dim sum that we have seen is really using prawns and pork to make it and to manufacture it. But short meat has really used a clean approach and a sustainable approach to produce a alternate siu mai that using culture stream cells as well. Another area that we look at is the novel vegan meat replacement. So I would say the classic example for everyone to be able to relate well, it would be Impossible Burger. You have the Beyond Meat. So those are the meat alternative where they use different plant protein like soy protein, pea protein and different processing methods as well to incorporate it to become a meat alternative, like a beef patty that you have seen very regularly in different retails, like Swenson in Singapore is selling all this portion. There's also another area that look at plant-based product as well. I think the next slide, if you can see. Yeah, so this one is data from US. You have the plant-based milk. So it's something that is also in a increasing trend, the non-dairy alternatives. So milk and salt, instead of using cows to get their milk, what a lot of companies are using different plant-based material like cashew, almond. And I believe in the Asian market, something is very similar, and something that we all grew up drinking is soy milk. This is another area. So they are moving towards soy milk and having cashew, almond. And even one of our companies that we have on our cohort, the previous cohort, use pumpkin seed milk to make, using pumpkin seed to extract and to make into a milk. So it's something very different from the conventional almond or cashew milk. So we do have plant-based cheese as well. There's something that is an increasing trend as well, where I believe that in Singapore, there's also companies working, producing very delicious plant-based cheese. So I guess there's a lot of different plant-based products that's out in the market. I would say there's a lot of different changes in terms of the typical Asian vegetarian meat that we have seen in the hawker centers and the restaurants, where it's like a piece of slab of meat. There's like a mock ham, but now it's changing towards another trend where it becomes like a meat patty and tastes very similar to a beef, or very similar to the hamburgers that you are having regularly in McDonald's or even in Moss Burgers. So I say that it's really quite a lot of change in terms of the plant-based food they're looking at, because of the research they have done in terms of identify the right ingredients, the processing methods as well, to create this different texturized meat, and also to look into the nutritional aspects to how to fortify these products to make sure that it gains the nutritional qualities that is required for everyone. Probably Abdallah would like to talk more about this area in the alternate protein spaces as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so definitely, like Dr. Matthew said, there are global trends, and sort of the more of the statistics, let's say, are showing in the U.S. market or North American markets, but we can definitely see this sort of trickling down into Asia Pacific. So we do expect, if you can just go back to the previous two slides, I think. Yeah, this one, exactly. So we can do predictions based on, let's say the current meat consumption in Asia Pacific. And this is a really great figure because it breaks it down by, different countries. But, I would say for like Singapore, we might have a similar outlook to Malaysia. So this is a great chance, for us to support, innovative companies that are producing, I guess like meat analogs, and focusing on different types that are suitable and strategic for specific countries will be very interesting going forward. So as you can see in Asia Pacific, definitely sort of chicken and pork are some of the largest kind of meats that are consumed, whereas in the US, it would be kind of a bit more balanced, where there's more sort of beef consumption. So this is a great chance for us to also find localized companies that are producing looking for companies that are producing localized products for the Asia Pacific market.
Thank you, Dr. Dalal. Yeah, it was quite interesting. Like, you guys really set the stage of, like, what is alternative protein. Personally, I struggle with trying to quit chicken rice and mincemeat noodles, bak chor mee. So that is like my ultimate downfall. But other than that, I'm doing well. So besides getting you guys to share about a bit more alternative protein, we would like to hear from the audience as well. Like, what do you guys think about alternative protein, and what kind of diet habits do you have? So the first two questions we'll be launching onto the poll will be: one, what type of diets do you currently follow? And then, have you ever tried an alternative protein product before? For example, the Impossible Burger. Yeah, so you take your time to vote at the moment, and looking forward to the response. Yeah, Yang En, how about you?
Yes.
What can you not quit? What's your ultimate downfall?
Ultimate nemesis is actually fried chicken. I love fried chicken. I mean, Korean fried chicken, American style fried chicken. I mean, like that I haven't quite found a replacement for that. So if anyone knows a good replacement for good mock chicken meat, please feel free to let us know. Let me know, especially. But I gotta say that when I first tasted Impossible, I was really amazed. The version 2 really tasted a lot like real beef. And I think even for meat lovers, they will really enjoy such a novel product. So I'm actually quite excited to see like what our audience thinks as well.
Shall we see the results?
Yeah, shall we?
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Yeah. Ta-da, the results. Yeah, most of us, I think, are omnivores, and then followed by flexitarian, which is a really great sign. Like, more people are, taking more conscious approach to choosing the food they eat. And then most people have tried plant-based alternative protein products before, and 10 people haven't. So once circuit breaker is over, we invite you to Slice Cafe for tasting. Yeah. Okay. So there are different types of consumers when it comes to consuming food. It depends on what you prioritize as importance when you choose what you want to eat. So we would like to find out what types of consumer you are as well. So in the next question, we will be asking you, what is the most important factor for you to consider consuming alternative protein? Do you value taste? Do you value nutrition? Do you value cost, or do you value impact on environment?
All right, so take some time to input your answer. Jaden, I'm quite curious, what do you choose?
For me, I think it might be impact on environment. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, but I still find it very hard to cut off like those two dishes. So hopefully, like with the advancement of alternative protein, like with all the startups coming up locally, I'm very excited for it to really be a game changer. Yep. So we've got majority of the audience who has voted. So let's see.
Right, let's see the results.
Wow, it seems like most people are concerned about taste, followed by impact on environment, and then nutrition and cost. Wow, everyone's quite privileged here, maybe doesn't have to consider so much on like the cost of meat when you choose to consume them. Yeah, so taste is important, especially in the Singapore's context. We claim to be a food haven, right? People are willing to pay for food that tastes good and is familiar to them. So most of us have tried plant-based meat before. What do you guys think about the taste of alternative protein meat? Do you think it is better than conventional meat, or do you think that conventional meat is still better? So tell us what you think about it right now. Yeah, I think when we had a little dry run on this, Dr. Dala, Patricia, and Dr. Matthew had a very different response when it comes to this. I think at the end of the day, everyone have their preferences. Yeah, it's quite interesting to see. Yeah, we have quite an interesting chat going on as well. Texture is very important. Maybe it will be interesting to get some of our friends who have converted to a vegetarian or vegan diet to share with us later what are their experiences finding, you know, alternative in Singapore.
Yeah.
I think Patricia has a nice story. She's almost vegan, I think.
Wow.
Essentially,
When did you start, Patricia?
yes. So back in, I think when I was in Melbourne, when I was in university, the college I lived in was more or less fully vegan. Of course, I didn't know that before I entered the college. It's something that they mitigated from the conversation. So in essence, I was almost sort of forced to be vegan, and I found that, you know, throughout the years, it was actually not as hard as you would suspect it would be. But then again, I think it depends on the place that you're staying, because, you know, they have a very big sort of sustainability angle and very big vegan culture. Coming back to Singapore was a very different story, and that's when I started, you know, I couldn't resist my, you know, chicken, and like I couldn't resist my bak chor mee. I can't resist any of those things. But since joining Big Idea Ventures, of course, like, you know, you're way more exposed to all these different startups, and, you know, the investments that we've made in the startups we have made so far, they have some really amazing products out there, which kind of, you know, have started to shift me back to veganism. Not quite yet, but we're getting there.
All right.
Nice.
That's good to hear. Okay, let's see the results, Jay.
Okay. Are you guys surprised? Are you guys surprised by this? It tastes like meat, but I still prefer real meat.
The real meat. Oh wow. Okay.
I wonder what is the trigger. Like,
I'm actually thinking if people are actually scarred by the traditional mock meat that have existed in the market for quite a while now, especially in Asia. And I think you know, those vegetarian meat that we see from like Chinese vegetarian stores or whatever, they're usually closely associated with certain cultures and religions as well, right? And I think it was once seen as an option that catered mainly only to vegetarians. But it seems like this new wave of plant protein is targeted at a much wider range of consumers, especially even meat eaters, right? So I want to pose this question to our panelists over here. So how is this new wave of plant-based meat so different from the typical mock meat in terms of taste as well as texture? Yeah. Maybe Dr. Dalla, would you like to?
I think this is actually a very good question for Dr. Matthew. I think you
sure.
should share it.
Yeah, I guess the different in terms of plant-based meat from typical mock meat. Yeah, I would say that last time when I used to work in FRLC, we always have this vegetarian store that we always go and eat their vegetarian or mock meat. So I would say the texture is like it's literally like a slab of a chewy block of meat that you eat it, and it's very I mean, sometimes if you fry anything, you deep fried it, it will taste absolutely nice. So that one that we don't have any comment. But those that is like they braised it or they put in cook together with sauce, typically I would say it still tastes like a block of starch that is not really tasty at all. So texture really comes in handily. But right now we look at the new trends of Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat, where they come up with a different processing technique that comes out to produce a fibrous texture that is really like a mincemeat. So I think this definitely shifts the perception of vegetarian meat in terms of plant-based meat as well. So I would say for me, my case is definitely if I would look at Impossible Burger and all those the new trend of the new plant-based protein meat, I think it's definitely tastes really good. Whereas I think that the typical Asian market that we have, the mock meats, the mock ham that we do, I would say that definitely there's still room of improvement, that we can change the texture and also to improve the overall flavor as well, because it do have the very beany taste that is not very desirable. That's why I guess right now the companies that's working on using plant-based meat, they also address the issue to remove the beany aftertaste, or using pea proteins to remove the pea taste, or the very chalky taste that is not very desirable. So I guess they've done a lot of different R&D work to ensure that all these are being removed, and then the consumer get to taste the real meat, the meaty flavor, and as well for Impossible and beyond, they give you even the change in color, where it's the redness of the beef that you have in terms of the meat patty. So I would say there's a lot of huge change, and I believe this change will be even greater over the years, where they do a lot of innovation studies and also to produce new product. Yep. So yeah, this is what I feel in terms of the change in the plant-based meat.
Thanks, Dr. Matthew. Yeah, I definitely agree with you that, with R&D that has taken place over the years so far, it has definitely really increased the level of taste and the flavor of alternative sources of meat that we have, right? So something that's closely related to taste is actually nutrition, right? So it tastes good, it's super yummy, but is it good for us? So maybe this is a nice segue into our next factor that we're going to look at, which is nutrition, right? So over to you, Jaden.
Yeah, I think it has been one of the most controversial topic when it comes to alternative protein. When I first got in touch with the term, I went online, and it seems like there are two camps of people. Camp number one, they will choose to eat plant-based meat because they think that it's more nutritious. And then camp number two, they are unsure, what do people put inside plant-based meat? Are they like super highly processed? Is there like detrimental long-term impact in terms of the health if I consume too much of it? If I consume it every day, an Impossible Burger every day, will that cause me some health problems, right? So we want to know like what you guys think. Do you think that plant-based meat is healthier than conventional meat? Do you think it's true, or do you think it's false? Yeah. I think even for this one, I think within ourselves, we are quite divided on this.
Yeah, it's quite hard to say whether it's clearly a yes or clearly a no, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we do the mock trials, and then we do have different answers as well. It's quite interesting that some of them believe true and false as well. So exciting to see what's the results like.
Yeah.
Wow, it's very tight. So Dr. Dalla, Dr. Matthew, do you guys also try to incorporate more plant-based and like vegetarian diets in your own personal life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about having a balanced diet.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, both of us we love food, and every time for lunch we would just head out and look for new food and try even the vegetarian stores outside, and then we compare with some of the products that our cohort company produce, and then we can also identify how much difference they taste like in terms of the conventional mock meat versus the product that they have spent so much time and effort to produce. So yeah, it's interesting to see the difference on the diverse population of food in terms of in the vegetarian space.
All right, shall we see what our audience think about whether or not alternative protein meat is healthier or not?
Yeah, let's see the results.
Let's see the results. Yeah, we are very quite divided.
Oh, by a slight margin though.
It's like
55%. Okay, so this is a really fine margin. So I think we have two different camps of people here. It'd be interesting to see this one, right? So I'm not sure whether some people in the audience have watched The Game Changers on Netflix. Maybe for those who haven't, for the benefit of those who haven't, it's actually a documentary on Netflix that explores the benefits of plant-based diets. And they also showed examples of how elite athletes who have followed a plant-based diet for a certain period of time, they actually achieve better health stats after a while, and really debunking the myth that you need to eat animal meat to bulk up, right? So, but before going to whether it's healthier for us, what are the ingredients that actually go into plant-based meat? Yeah, what is it made out of exactly, right? When we talk about an Impossible patty, and are they really packed with higher protein content?
Yeah, maybe I'll take this question. So I mean, there are several factors, and of course each camp have good reasons to justify their sides and their viewpoints. So looking at sort of the protein quality, right, or the protein aspect, this is like one thing I want you guys to consider, is in terms of the protein, we look at it from a variety of ways. So it could be the quality, it could be the quantity, and also the digestibility. So how well we can absorb it, right? So as humans, we have our own type of digestive system. We're not ruminants, so we don't eat grass every day. So we've kind of developed, let's say, a digestive system that can readily absorb animal protein. So usually the digestibility score for animal protein is much higher. That's like one sort of way that you could say that in terms of the quality, it might be more superior in animal protein compared to plant protein. The other way, of course, that you can look at it is that the amino acid profile in animal protein is more complete compared to plant protein. However, to compensate for those deficiencies, actually a lot of the plant-based products will combine different protein sources. So they'll combine wheat with soy, or wheat with pea, or or oat protein, rice protein, to make sure that it can have a complete amino acid profile. So that's really great. So we can find ways to overcome some of these deficiencies, so it's better for us as humans and for our digestive system. On another aspect, like another component to consider around protein, of course, is the stability. So we know that, with animal proteins, it might be more stable than with plant proteins, but with technology and also with fermentation, we can enhance those properties going forward. I'm sort of a huge advocate towards consuming more plant-based protein, at least like this is how I see it, is the higher fiber content. So this is something that's commonly lacking in all of our diets. And a lot of sort of scientists now believe that this is the main culprit for most of our chronic diseases, including diabetes, cardiovascular disease, as well as obesity. So making sure that we have optimal gut health is something that plant-based protein can help us achieve, especially once we kind of increase, let's say, use it, like consume it like regularly in our diets, and kind of move away from animal protein, which has been shown to kind of, not be so optimal in high quantities for our gut health, and might produce some, let's say, pro-inflammatory markers. So this is where we can kind of justify how and why plant-based proteins are more nutritious, but we have to always keep in mind that it requires a lot of technology to make sure that they are able to be at the same level as animal protein. I think we had some nice charts as well, like we put together. Yeah, so this is a very nice chart to show in terms of the nutrition and the composition. So you can see with your kind of typical, let's say, animal protein like beef, pork, and chicken, things that are much higher, of course, are the iron content compared to the plant-based alternatives. So, especially like from nuts, or from soy-based or wheat-based protein, even like, legumes and mycoprotein. But on the other hand, you can see that the fiber content is much higher in all those alternatives. So this is a really great opportunity for us to, let's say, alleviate and reduce the effects, let's say, reduce our risk of chronic diseases if we have a diet with higher fiber content. Sort of the cell-based space, which we haven't really touched upon a lot during this presentation, but kind of the future food technologies, utilizing cell technology to produce animal protein. So this will be the same composition in terms of the nutrients as animal protein. So as you can see from this chart, cultured beef will also have the same nutrient levels as a typical animal beef product. So this is how technology can really ensure that we will have the best nutrition going forward.
Right. Yeah, so I actually have a question, right? So we see all these components that are good for our health, but should we be aware of any other, processed ingredients or additives that might be added in the production process that could be detrimental to our long-term health?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely with, let's say, highly processed foods, and also to ensure that there is an adequate shelf life, which I'll let Dr. Matthew also talk about in more detail. You have to, of course, like make sure that you have the right additives. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, companies will just rely on salt and sugar because they're considered as natural additives. And having, of course, high sugar and high salt is not optimum for our health either. So yeah, I'll let Dr. Matthew maybe go a bit further about, let's say, the aspects of different additives on these products.
Yeah, I guess one of the things to highlight is shelf life is definitely something that the company has to think about, because if you can produce something that's very nice, very nutritious, but it does not last for a day or maybe a month or week, you're unable to bring it across the supply chain to be across different countries as well. So typically shelf life is something that they have to look at it. So That's why I believe some of the additives they added in is also not just for the shelf life, also for the binding capabilities, the texture, to improve the texture of the product as well. So shelf life, typically, I think they will go through different processes as well to ensure that they can meet a required shelf life or extended shelf life, so that they can bring it across from the US to Singapore, or from even China to different parts of the world. So this is something that I believe that they are working very hard. I think even those new companies that working into creating a new plant-based diet, they are reducing their salt intake, as what Dalat say, that they try to use salt to use as to extend the shelf life. So there's a lot of different methods that they are trying to study and try to incorporate into the product, so that they can also fortify it with the vitamins like B12 or even lack of iron intake, so that they try to fortify this their product with B12 iron, so that they can also cater to the nutrition needs for the consumer. So I think that I would say that it's always a balance. You have to balance how you get the nutritional content correct, and also to achieve a reasonable good shelf life for you to export your product, or even to have it on your retailers as well.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Dalla and Dr. Matthew. I think when we talk about the, while we are able to talk about, some of these benefits that alternative protein meat has, and so far it's been pretty positive. Many people feel that it tastes like meat, and in terms of the nutritional value, we're able to fortify it with stuff that are good for our bodies as well. But I think we also want to be a bit mindful about the reality, which is that, cost is still a very important factor that drives consumption, right? And I think, as the world heads into a recession in the next couple of months, I'm sure many people will also start to be a lot more cost conscious, and they will really be a bit more mindful in terms of spending on food and groceries, etc. So, but yet at the same time, when we see novel meat alternatives, they seem to be associated more with a premium lifestyle and a higher price tag, as opposed to normal animal meat. So, for example, the other day I was at NTUC, and I saw that a pack of 2 Beyond Meat patties actually cost almost $13, if I'm not wrong. And compared to the same amount of protein, like a beef mince that I get, it could just be $5 to $6 or even less, right? So it's about 1/3 the price. So what goes into this high price tag of alternative proteins? Is it because the production costs are higher, or could it be due to other sort of associated costs like R&D, marketing, distribution?
Yeah, but I can maybe briefly talk about this. What I guess is because companies, when it comes to produce alternate proteins or even plant-based meat or even cell culture itself, they really have to invest a lot of time in the R&D section to get to patent their technology and the ingredients. So definitely, I would say they spend a lot of time and money in R&D and they have to maintain this amount of money with them, so that they can always innovate new products. So I mean, one of the good examples is we have been working with our co-op companies like Future and Corona. You can look through how much time they have invested in their product, and then try to formulate something that tastes good, and then does get the right nutritional content, as well as also cater towards the Asian palates, because I would say that Impossible and Beyond, they look into the Western style like beef patty, but these are not really very suitable to the Asian palate. Like we have already mentioned bak chor mee so many times during our conversation. So definitely we have to innovate a product that is more suitable to the Asian likings as well. That's why they have to spend a lot of time to R&D to ensure that all these are being well studied, and also to produce the right texture, the right flavor as well for the consumer. So I would say that these are a lot of time spent as well, time and money they need to conduct all this R&D. That's why the product cost is slightly increased. Another issue that also worth to look at it is the ingredient supply, because when we look at it, they get soy protein, pea protein, and in fact, all this soy and pea protein are just the byproduct of the soy that soybeans typically used for the soybean oil, animal feeds and stuff, whereas they need to use the food waste, and then they try to extract the protein and use this protein for these plant-based meat. So I would say that because the ingredient is so limited, they don't have the huge demand of the raw ingredients to mass produce their end product. That's why the cost of the ingredients is also going to be high, and they have to source alternatives as well. That's why you can look at a lot of companies, they use a combination of soy, pea, not just for the nutritional content, they try to balance up so that they get the right texture, and also to balance the ingredient supply. But I guess over time, when the demand of the plant-based increases over time, the demand for the raw material definitely will increase, and then the industry will try to see how to address this increase in raw material. So another area that probably caused the production to increase as well is also the infrastructure, because there's always a huge demand for plant-based protein, plant-based meat, but there's not a lot of companies that can produce or have the right facilities of equipments to produce it. So they do need a lot of investment, a lot of time to restructure and to build up this manufacturing facilities so that they can also cater or manufacture the right amount of quantity for all the consumer around the world. So I think this is also a limitation where they are trying to see how they can invest into having a big manufacturing line. So I think recently I read an article that said Nestle is going to open up a plant-based plant in China, that this might also address the issue that having a huge manufacturing facilities can help to produce a greater quantity of the plant-based meat so that they can also push it over different part of the world. So this is the plant-based area, but cell-based area, there's a lot of studies as well trying to see how they can scale up their process and able to get harvest the right cells and also use it for end product as well. So I would say the infrastructure is slowly building, and then as long as we have a good and rigid infrastructure, I believe the cost for the plant-based material or the plant-based meat will decrease over time. So I would say that right now, yes, it seems very expensive, but I believe all those companies are trying to match the price of the real meat that you see in the market, so that at least they can have a profit margin as well, because this is something that they will try to allow the consumer to spend money, but yet it's not too expensive for them not to buy their product as well. So I think this is something that they are trying to balance up. And definitely I would say over the years, the cost of the plant-based product will drop significantly.
I'm really excited for the day that plant-based meat might be the same price or way cheaper. So that will really make my decision a lot quicker as well. Yeah, looking for the day that technology advances and we achieve economies of scale. So I was wondering, for all of us, if plant-based meat price decreases, will we actually consume more? What do you think your behavior will be if the price lowers? Yang-en, so if the 2 patties of Beyond Meat becomes cheaper, will you have bought it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel that maybe the contrast in pricing is what I observe in supermarkets, but I got to say, at least in restaurants, I mean, if you're going to order a premium burger set at a restaurant, it's not that cheap anyway as well, right? And we have seen the price of an Impossible Burger set being about 20 to 25 Sing dollars, and that is actually quite comparable to the current prices of a normal beef burger set out there. So I'm hoping that on the big retail front, we're able to see greater cost competitiveness, so that more people can actually cook it on a daily basis, and we don't really have to just rely on restaurant options or outside options to get these products. Yeah.
Right. Let's see how our audience think about this as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
That's great. So VIV, Big Ideas Ventures, let's do it. Let's help these startups, reduce their costs and make it more competitive. Looking forward to that. Yeah. So on the last factor affecting, our consumption choice, a lot of alternative protein right now is consumption is driven by the younger generation. For example, the Gen Z and the millennials. Based on a survey done by Impossible Food last year, more than half of the US Gen Z population consume plant-based meat at least once a month. That's a great amount. They feel like plant-based meat is generally more sustainable for the environment. So do you all think that plant-based meat is more sustainable for the environment as compared to conventional meat? True or false? Wow.
I'm actually quite curious. Maybe we have more Gen Z and millennials in the audience.
I think we are all Gen Z and millennials in our heart, right?
So let's see if the results are the same as the US survey and our mini survey over here. Oh.
Yes, I think so.
Quite a resounding yes. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Yeah. I think at first glance, it seems that alternative protein is more sustainable with lower land use compared to animal farming, but I'm not sure whether it's really more efficient in terms of other resources such as energy and water. What do you guys think?
Sorry, could you repeat the question one more time?
In terms of sustainability, I mean, we look at lower land use, right? I mean, alternative protein as opposed to conventional animal farming. But in terms of other resources like energy and water, is it really more efficient in the use of these things as well?
Yeah, this is this is quite debated, right? I think we have some nice figures. We can maybe show the audience and kind of go through. So absolutely, I think like the biggest sort of scrutiny that we have now for the animal industry is of course the land use, the water use, as well as the the greenhouse gas emissions and the overall sort of energy conversion, right? So at the moment, let's say the results or the predictions look positive. That in terms of at least the cultured meat, so this is cell-based meat, will have like a lower impact on all three of these aspects: land use, energy use, as well as the greenhouse gas emissions. However, I would take this with caution that we still are finding out more about cell-based industries. And if you can move over to the next slide. So there have been some debates. So the figure on the right is actually from the World Economic Forum, and there the predictions are that the cultured beef might have let's say higher emissions, especially of CO2, and this is more towards the production plant. So I would say that there are some debates going back and forth as to how much energy will be used and what are the what the impact will be. Going towards the plant-based space. So there are sort of huge optimisms, that this will be a much more cleaner industry, especially in terms of the water use, the land use. Of course, if we can, enhance this through innovative farming solutions, either through hydroponics systems, or other kind of alternative agricultural systems. But definitely, like compared to the the land use, the water use, and the CO2 emissions, these will all be a lot lower. Some of the concerns, though, that a lot of countries are having is more towards the arable land. So like right now, most animals are being raised on non-arable land that's not fit for agriculture. So making sure that we have adequate land available for, let's say, increased plant protein demand might be something for us to consider in the future. Personally, I don't think this will be a problem because if we are currently growing a lot of, let's say, plant-based products to feed the animal agriculture system. So if we reduce that, a lot of the food that they would be eating would automatically go to the, let's say, the human populace. So I think that we will manage, to balance these out, making sure that we can have, of course, closed loop systems, which the animal agricultural systems currently do, especially with sort of plant bio waste. So for instance, like husks and the sort of all the byproducts from plants are now fed into the animal agricultural industries. So making sure that we can also find innovative solutions, either through producing building materials, coming up with new sort of recycling initiatives around plant waste. I think we will be able to solve and create a more sustainable food system supply.
Yeah, sounds optimistic. Are there other factors that we need to consider as well, apart from the production of the alternative protein itself? So for example, things like packaging and distribution. How are the costs doing on those fronts in terms of the impact on our environment? Yeah.
I think this is Dr. Matthew.
Dr. Matthew, yeah. Would you like to share a bit more? Yeah.
I was thinking about packaging as well because
yeah.
I know to get sustainable packaging is something that every consumer loves to have sustainable packaging, something that is good and stuff like this. But in my point of view, packaging comes in very important, especially looking at the shelf life. How do you want to set the right packaging for the shelf life? And in terms of getting sustainable packaging, yes, there's a lot of companies out there globally that produce sustainable packaging, but we have to consider the cost of the packaging as well, because to get the sustainable packaging, the cost will be higher, and definitely this cost will eventually implicates into the consumer as well. So the consumer has to pay the high amount of cost that you will say, like for instance, you get a bag of potato chips, and then these chips are using the normal conventional packaging. It costs you Like for Lay's, it costs you almost $4 in Singapore. What will happen if they, instead of using the conventional type of material packaging they use for Lay's, they convert exactly the same Lay's, but they use a very sustainable cost of material, and they charge you $7 for it. So this is something that you have to think about, and we also definitely have to wonder how long it takes for this company to produce something that's sustainable in terms of packaging, and as well to lower the cost as well, because I would say that sustainable packaging definitely has a lot of things to consider as well in terms of the functional properties of the packaging, whether does it provide you with the good barrel properties, and you have to look at how you want to produce it as well, because the resins that they use is going to be different, and the approach that they're going to produce the packaging is definitely going to be another area that they have to look at. So in terms of sustainable, I think the industry is working towards to get a very sustainable packaging, but I would say that this will implicate on the cost as well, and they are still improving a lot in terms of achieving sustainable packaging. Yeah, I'll guess it's more, from my personal point of view, I would think it's more like we can educate people to recycle or reuse the packaging more often. Like for instance, if we know this a Coca-Cola bottle is a PET bottle, we all should segregate it, and then we can recycle or even reuse I'm not reuse, but more on recycle the packaging or the bottles that we have. That definitely will also helps to will contribute to the environmental issue as well.
Yeah, I think probably reducing single-use plastics would be key to this eco-sustainable packaging kind of movement as well. And yeah, I'm really excited to see more solutions come up in this particular space, because right now so many people are doing deliveries and takeaways, and so much plastic and materials actually being wasted from day to day. So really looking forward to this solution sometime soon. Okay, so I think we're left with less than 10 minutes. So let's take some questions from the audience. Jaden.
Yeah, I like this question by Ravi Shankar. He asks,
Nice.
How does plant-based protein fit into Singapore's 30 by 30 strategy? Are we able to produce any alternative protein in Singapore? Super curious about this, because I think this will really ramp up the whole segment. What do you guys think about it, Dr. Dalla, Patricia, or Matthew?
Okay, let me start a bit. What I guess for the Singapore initiative, like 30 by 30 strategy, is to be 30% self-sufficient in terms of nutrition. So definitely in terms of getting plant-based protein is an area that we can use different process to get the right protein. I would say another area is a cultivated meat, where they can also use like bioreactors area to harvest the cells to get the nutrition from the cells to produce, to achieve the protein that we need. So I would say that a lot of companies are working towards that in Singapore. Like Shomit is the best example that we can look at, is to using a clean, sustainable approach to produce nutrients or a good end product like the prawn dumplings. So I would say that a lot of companies looking into how we can look into producing some alternate protein spaces. You can be plant-based or you can be cell culture, and I believe there's a lot of local companies as well looking into producing a clean approach of meat culture. So I would say yes, with the support of the government, definitely we can push this above to something that address this issue, and the companies in our cohort as well are working really hard, doing a lot of R&D work, and to make sure that they can also produce or meet the requirements by the 30 by 30 initiatives. Yeah. Will Dalla or Patricia got anything to add on?
Yeah, I'll tack something on. I think also at this point, with the way that we're consuming meat, and also the nature of, Singapore itself, there's a lot of reliability or reliance on, external imports or, partnerships with neighboring countries, to the point where I think if a lockdown such as COVID has shown, it's very important that Singapore thinks about its future in terms of how it can feed itself in a sustainable way. And I think it's one of the greatest sort of hubs for that to happen. You can see VCs popping up, not just in Singapore, but around the region, to really facilitate that. And I think plant protein is one of the better, definitely one of the more efficient ways to go in terms of achieving those goals, especially considering, land use and sort of the available resources that we have. So it's really nice to see sort of all these VCs in the food tech and agri-tech industry really sort of honing in all of their resources to make it happen.
Yeah, And I would just add there, like, I think, being in Singapore, it's such a great sort of ecosystem, where you have, adequate sort of government support, you have the right kind of like MNC environment that, I think we can all at BIV agree that they are super collaborative and cooperative at sort of, promoting and enhancing the alternative protein space. So I think, we are really well positioned to, disrupt and really enhance and accelerate, let's say the alternative protein industry. So I think that everyone will should be feeling very proud to be in Singapore. That they're the ecosystem, the environment, all the players are really putting us up to be like the leaders in the field.
Yeah. So I think you guys mentioned about funding, and we have a question on funding as well. So basically, how's the funding environment like in Singapore for alternative protein startups? And I mean, given that you guys invest in alternative protein startups yourselves, what are some of the things that you're looking out for, in your investments?
Okay, I'll take that one first. So in terms of our investment thesis, so even though we're focused on alternative protein, we actually have a very wide scope around it. So we look at everything from consumer product goods. They could be plant-based alternatives to meat, dairy, and seafood. But we also look at the sort of the ingredients and any kind of like say tertiary let's say industries that are affiliated with this. So this could be manufacturing, it could be kind of additives, snacks as well. So we're quite broad in terms of the plant-based space. And then when you look at sort of the cell ag, so we look into, of course, supporting biotech companies mainly that are working on, producing, I guess, like all the steps throughout the process. So it could be working on materials, biomaterials, reagents, media, growth factors. It could be working on, scaffolding, to help these cells grow, as well as the equipment related to these, pilot plant facilities, such as the bioreactors and other systems that might be implemented. So we're quite broad in our investment thesis. In terms of the investment opportunity, you can really see that in Singapore as well as in Asia Pacific, there is a growing space of investment funds, either VCs or other kind of investment houses that are geared and focused towards future food technologies, including alternative protein. So this has been going on for the last, let's say, 3 to 4 years, where you're having sort of more dedicated focuses on, let's say, the food sector. And especially in Singapore, we're really glad to say that we're the first alternative protein sort of investment fund. But there are a lot of other investors that are very keen to implement and adopt, or let's say include alternative protein startups into their portfolio. So it's quite a vibrant ecosystem in Singapore and in Asia Pacific.
Patricia, Dr. Matthew, do you have anything to add to that?
I would say, I guess the time is running out, but I would say if you want to know more information, you can feel free to drop us email or stuff. We can give you another 1 hour sessions of a lot of different in-depth of what sort of investment we do, because I guess we are running out of time, but we have a lot of time on our side. So just feel free to keep in touch with contact us as well.
Yeah, actually, maybe just to round up. Sorry, Patricia.
I said, and definitely check out our portfolio companies.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Doing some incredible things.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe just a quick final question to round up today's session. It's going to be a short phrase, and you just have to answer yes, no, right? So do you think alternative protein consumption is going to become the norm? So yes or no? And in 2050, how do you think we will be consuming alternative protein?
I would say yes.
I would say yes too.
Yes, of course. That's what we're all striving towards.
Yeah.
Right. And how will you be imagining consuming alternative protein?
I think as the younger generations sort of graduate through the years, they'll definitely be more conscious of a lot of the way that they eat, as you can already see now. So I think in 2050, if not most, then approaching most people would be consuming, at least in some way, alternative protein.
Yeah, and I believe
Alright.
a lot of cell-based are coming up soon. They will merge
Yeah.
cell-based and plant-based together. So over the years of probably 2050, you get to see really more of the cell-based company coming. You have their products together with the plant-based as a hybrid, and then slowly you can get to even see a piece of steak that is probably made of cell. So yeah, you never know. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we didn't really cover cell-based and insect protein, but definitely I think we'd be more than happy to in subsequent sessions we could do deep dives into these topics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you for all the questions as well. Like, I think the questions and the chat box has been really active. Yeah, I think all of us are very curious about the future of alternative protein. But thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Dr. Dalla, Dr. Matthew, Patricia, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Right.
It's
So
a pleasure as well.
yeah. So today we have come to the end of our session. And once again, on behalf of all the panelists, Jed and myself, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us here today. So at Slice, together with our in-house kitchen team, we are also looking at how we are able to incorporate alternative protein into local dishes and cuisines, right? And make it something that will be enjoyed by the masses. So if you have more comments, questions, or even ideas related to the future of food, please reach out to us, and also please reach out to BIV on these matters, and we'll be more than happy to get in touch and answer some of the questions. So thank you, everyone. I'm just going to give a short announcement. The next session on the virtual open house lineup is going to be a discussion by the Climate Adaptive Manufacturing team, together with Garage at EE from NTU. Okay, so they will be speaking about how we're able to enable more individuals to achieve barrier-free access to advanced manufacturing technologies and also build up their readiness to manufacture. Yeah, so for those who are interested in this topic, please stay on. If not, yeah, thank you everyone for joining us on today's panel.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you.
Yeah. See you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.